Welcome everyone to the second episode of Divergent Dialogues. We're really excited to be talking about our topic today, boosting self-esteem. So, Tina, was there anything that you wanted to start off with?
So I was going to start this week's episode talking about barriers to building and maintaining healthy self-esteem. Maybe shifting our focus to the outer world influences that can create barriers to that.
Yeah.
So I think a really important one for ADHDers is that terrible statement, and I think this is also true for autistic folk, is people questioning like your diagnosis, like things like leaving you really doubting yourself. Or that simple statement, you don't look like you've got ADHD, or you don't look like an ADHDer, because you don't match that historical view that's a 6-year-old boy bouncing off the walls and just sort of very energetic. Or some other really common ones that I've encountered is statements like, oh yes, we're all a little bit ADHD, aren't we? I don't like waiting in line either, or I don't like doing those tasks either. Things like that. And questioning your success. You can't be an ADHDer if you have any success, which is really offensive, just saying.
Yes. Yeah, so I think it's problematic for a few reasons. I think some people, when they're saying, oh, everyone's a little bit autistic, or, everyone, oh, you don't seem that autistic. I think people believe that they are being complimentary or helpful in some sort of way, because I guess autism and ADHD are viewed as something that's bad or undesirable. So if you're just a little bit bad or undesirable, well, that's okay then. But it's
just a little bit disordered. I mean, it is in the title.
Yeah, but it's like, well, actually, no. By people saying that, they're saying, oh, that's bad. It's bad to be autistic and ADHD. You don't really want to be a lot of that. It's okay to be a little bit of that. And also, like, I've heard a lot of my clients and myself as well had experiences where people have just outright denied that they're autistic or ADHD. Oh, you don't seem it. And it's just so invalidating. And I think I've had so many people come to me for support who have really, it's been a big hit to their self-esteem, because they've, a lot of them have done their research, they've been really anxious, and then they've been brave enough to tell someone, and then they've been so badly invalidated, or made to feel that, it's bad. So yeah, I think my advice to people, if you're not sure what to say, don't say anything, and just go, oh, just be curious. Oh, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Don't kind of go to that, oh, I want to try and make this person feel better, because when you're saying, oh, you seem a little bit, oh, you're only a little bit autistic, that's actually really offensive. So yeah, that's my 2 cents about that.
That's a good 2 cents. Some other really important ones to address that really big barriers to building and maintaining healthy self-esteem is that whole idea of you just need to try harder. It's not that you actually have ADHD or you're autistic. You are just too selfish to try harder to be better at the thing. Like you just don't want to go to a shopping center. It's not that, that sensory overwhelm and that environment absolutely cripples you and means that you need 2 days to sort of soothe your nervous system. That's not really happening, because I can't see that's happening. It must just be that you're making an excuse so you don't have to do something that you don't enjoy. And when we're constantly being asked to try harder, when we've identified things that just don't work for us, then that too is absolutely crippling to self-esteem. because it's a case of, okay, so I've done all this work to figure out why I am so off for days after a trip to the shopping centre, or why I'm so off for days after having all these incidental things pop up in my schedule. And I'm working towards managing that. But now I'm being told that it's actually selfish to be trying to eliminate some of these stresses. That's really, really detrimental to self-esteem.
Yeah. And I think something that's important to consider is that for neurotypical folks, for them, it might be inconvenient. Like it might be inconvenient that, you know, they can't stay at the shops as long as they want, or, you know, it may be inconvenient that they have to do things in a certain way. But for autistic folks in particular, it's harmful. It's physically and psychologically harmful to go into certain environments due to issues with sensory overwhelm. Like recently, it's Christmas time here. Christmas has just passed, and I live near a really big, busy shopping center. And every time I would go to the shopping center, it was so busy. I would come home and I feel dizzy. Like it's not like people, it's not just that anxiety. Like there is a lot of overwhelming anxiety, but it physically impacts my body, where I feel dizzy, I feel like really out of sorts, and I have no control over that. Like, you know, obviously I try my accommodations, I put my loops in, or, you know, even sometimes I wear sunglasses in the shopping center. But there's only so much you can accommodate for. And at Christmas time, it's just so busy. Like it is what it is, kind of thing. And you know, people want Christmas presents, so you know, you got to try and you can't, like, you know, I do push through, but it has there's an impact, there's a cost that I have to pay in order to be in those spaces. So I think that's really important to consider when, you know, you're saying, oh, you know, you're lazy. It's like, well, no, this takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy, and for hours after, or days, I'm like really, like, it's hard for me to do anything. So
well,
yeah.
the idea, you know, my workaround for that is starting really quite early in my Christmas shopping and ordering everything online. But the criticism of that is that like I waste money on the amount of like the delivery fees and stuff that I pay. And for me, it's kind of like, well, no, I'm just paying for my sanity, really. It's a fair
sanity
exchange. I'll pay the extra $9.95 so I don't have to spend the next 48 hours burnt out trying to, you know, recoup. That's a bargain as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely.
But sort of a bigger one is and this is quite often for ADHDers, because we do sort of struggle with memory-based stuff, is if you cared about me, you would remember. You know, that might be that you remembered someone's birthday at the last minute, or remembering names. You know, like you go to a social event and you know, you've met someone and you really hit it off, but you can't for the life of you remember their name. So
funny. I can remember a face. I can remember everyone's entire backstory. Can I remember their name? Nope. So
yeah, I have this odd little file of people's birth dates stored in my brain.
Oh, I'm not good with birthdays either.
Well, I don't necessarily like have names attached and things like that, but I mean, I can tell you the birth date of the boyfriend I had when I was 17's mother. You know, like, wow, it's so weird. You know, it's so weird. I should not know that information, and yeah, you can't let it out because it's just too weird. But yeah,
embrace, can't remember a name. Yeah, so I guess looking at some of those other outer world, so it sounds like we've, you know, touched on like sensory issues, also social interaction. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So, you know, there is what's it called? There is like the double empathy problem. So they did some research around how non-autistic people viewed autistic folks. And essentially there were some like video recordings taken, and non-autistic people viewed the videos. So the videos were of autistic people. They viewed the videos, and some of them knew that the people in the video were autistic, and some of them didn't know that they're autistic. So the people that viewed the videos of the autistic folks that didn't know that they were autistic rated them more unfavorably. So I guess because of autistic differences in communication, because it didn't fit with the social norms, they were essentially judged for that. Whereas when they did know that they're autistic, they're kind of like, oh, okay. And I guess there was sort of an explanation for I guess the differences in the communication and the behaviors. So I guess the double empathy problem is around with non-autistic folks and autistic folks communicating, there can be a challenge there where there's difficulty in that communication. Whereas like with autistic folks, talking to autistic folks, often there is a bit more, kind of more in sync, because there may, obviously all autistic people are different and unique, but there's those similarities there to communicate. And I think the part about the double empathy problem that's really important is that, in the past, historically, the social and communication differences, it's been put back onto autistic people, going, oh, they have these deficits around these things, they need to do something about it. And this research was really important because it actually showed that, well, no, it's more that basically autistic folks are kind of speaking a different language, and non-autistic people need to be able to understand that more. And it's a two-way street. Like autistic people could maybe learn a little bit about non-autistic speech, and vice versa. So I think obviously with that knowledge, things are changing. But yeah, again, like there's a lot of stigma, and that is changing with the neurodivergent affirming movement, but there is a lot of stigma that there's communication and social differences, and autistic people need to change that. Especially historically with ABA and all that kind of thing. So obviously that can really impact on self-esteem. And unfortunately, people that are becoming older now that have been through, ABA and trying to change those behaviors, they have a lot of trauma. There's been a lot of research around that as well. So, yeah.
ABA, that's the acronym for
applied behavioral analysis.
Yep, applied behavioral analysis. Just for those who don't know the acronym.
I love an acronym, but applied behavioral analysis. So so I think we do need to think about, it's really great that a lot of these things are changing, but there is kind of this cloud and hangover, particularly for those of us who are a bit older, where historically there's a lot of this stuff that still has a big impact, and a lot of that kind of internalized ableism stuff attached to that. What about inner world? Did you have anything around the inner world aspects for ADHDers?
Well, yeah, I think that it's really, really important to acknowledge how, like you were saying, these comments that we were just talking about are often said as inadvertent, sort of supportive comments, and they're supposed to be kind and things like that. But they're not sort of internalized that way. And the inner world psychological dimension is really heavily impacted by that, because as an ADHD, we're left sitting there going, oh, okay, so ADHD, prefrontal cortex, amygdala, all these things that are a part of the different ADHD brain are not the reason I struggle with all of this. It's just that I'm not quite good enough. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go sit in my room and cry now and try and figure out why I can't do these things the same as everybody else, because it's not ADHD, when in fact it is. And it's not that we can't do it, it's just that we need to do it differently. And it's sometimes a bit of a longer journey to figuring out how that is, and what that different approach is that works for us. So yeah, that psychological dimension is a huge component in self-esteem.
I think those are really, really good points. And I think it's really important for people to think about the words that they use, and language is so important. And think about why they're saying these particular things, and how that can really impact someone who's already struggling. So a lot of autistic folks often have co-occurring mental health issues, so particularly anxiety and depression, and often they can have a lot of really negative self-talk. So a lot of the these negative messages that autistic folks get from society, get from the media, get from the people around them, that can be really internalized. And it's just like these voices of all these things that other people have told them they are and who they are, and it's just like running around and around. So again, like being really careful about how we talk about autism and how we talk about ADHD, especially kids. We want to be making sure that we're setting them up for success, and we are talking about like, yeah, okay, you have some differences, but that's okay. And it's more about how can we support you to navigate this neurotypical world. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think in terms of what do we need to boost our self-esteem? I think first of all is that self-acceptance. Being able to hear things like well, maybe you just need to try a little bit harder, and being able to smile and go, yes, of course, that's the answer, without taking that on and internalizing it as anything other than a misguided comment from the person who just made it. That's really, really helpful. It's hard to do. It is hard to do sometimes.
Said than done. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
I mean, I still get hit with that one sometimes, where like struggling to clean up the kitchen after cooking dinner, and it's usually me that's giving myself crap about it.
Yeah.
So it is hard to
predict sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. But being selective about the people that we keep around us, it's a journey figuring all of that out, and building that team around us. But having supportive relationships is it's a game changer. When there's people around you that are willing to fill your gaps and support you where you struggle, it really does make a difference. Like there's no comment needed. It's just about, I've got a whole bunch of things that I'm really, really good at, and my partner has a whole bunch of things that he's really, really good at that I couldn't do to save my life. So like planning journeys. I do all the organization for our trips or our outings, but then he's the one that tells me this is what time we need to leave, this is where we're going, because that's his strength, and I forget all of that sort of stuff. And he never ever sort of criticizes me for not factoring that in, or not being able to give him any answers around that. He just does it, and it takes so much pressure off.
I always joke with my partner, because she also has ADHD, and I say that like together we're like one person, like I have my struggles and strengths, she has her struggles and strengths, and luckily we're like for the most part, like there's a good overlap where I have strengths, she has challenges, where and vice versa. The only thing is cooking. Neither of us particularly enjoy it. So that's probably the one where, it would have been nice if one of us was into that. But just having someone, and I guess the other thing is that something that's really important for autistic folks in boosting their self-esteem is connecting with the autistic community. And often, autistic people are drawn to other autistic people and may already have friends that are autistic, whether they're diagnosed, undiagnosed, identified or not. Finding your tribe and your people is really important, and having people that have been through similar struggles as well is really important. And I think going back to what you mentioned, before about having self-compassion is really important, and even having that as part of like your daily practice, like instead of focusing on all the challenges, focus on your unique brain and how that helps you in your relationships and day to day, and kind of having those like affirmations for yourself around and even if it's okay to have differences. It's okay to struggle. You don't have to push through. There are some times in life where it can be really tricky, like when it's Christmas time and you got to get presents, but you don't have to do things in the way that you've always been told you have to do them. And if you don't do them that way, that doesn't mean that you're any less either. So it's so like so important to have that positive inner self-talk and inner monologue.
It really is. And, one of the therapies that I draw from when working with both autistic and ADHDers is mindfulness.
Yeah.
I actually stumbled across mindfulness in my own personal therapeutic journey, looking to try and manage my anxiety. And like a true autistic person, I went and studied it and just became fluent in it because but I did that because mindfulness was the only thing that ever even touched the sides for me. And it was always about anxiety, but then later being diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and now understanding that my anxiety has sort of been reduced phenomenally, but my whole life is still underpinned by mindfulness, and it's a huge part of the therapy that I practice in.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is a bit of a buzzword in this day and age, and it's often sort of just interchanged with meditation, which it's not. That can be like an ADHD's worst nightmare.
Yeah. Whenever I suggest mindfulness to ADHD, they're like, I can't focus on it. I can't clear my mind. I'm like, you don't have to. That's not actually what I'm asking you to do.
Oh, exactly. Like mindfulness is just about stopping for a second and saying, okay, I'm in a bit of a tizzy right now because I'm trying to do 10 things at once.
Yes.
I need to slow down. Maybe I should just write a quick list, get it out of my head onto a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is about, at the end of the day, when your head is full of negative self-talk because, you forgot to take the rubbish out and you ended up with this foul smell in your house and cleaning up maggots.
From experience.
Possibly. That was my Monday. Or my Sunday. I can't remember what day it was, but like when you're at the end of your day and your head is full of that really negative self-talk, being able to stop and say, okay, it was a rough day, but what was one good thing about it? And it doesn't even have to be a big thing. It could just simply be that, I felt a nice breeze, or gee, I'm grateful for the air conditioner because it's really hot today.
Yes.
And at least I don't have to be physically uncomfortable as well as emotionally uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, and I guess in my practice, I focus a lot around strengths as well. So being mindful of your strengths and being mindful of your successes. And, I think I'm always careful not to minimize the struggles because, it's important not to invalidate those. But we have unique, autistic ADHDs have unique minds. And, that needs to be celebrated, and we need to look for those, sparks of joy in our lives, and, what we can provide in our lives to ourselves and those around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I often talk to the people that I work with about the idea that you can't be good at everything. And I totally agree. It's very important not to minimize or dismiss the struggles that we live with. Emotional dysregulation can be so draining and really horrible for us, amongst other things. But it's equally important not to dismiss or minimize the things that we are good at when we've been supported to explore those strengths, because I also recognize that not all ADHDers or autistic folk have had the support to explore their strengths and where their brains are really quite brilliant. So if you have been lucky enough to have that support and you've found it, celebrate it, because I cannot keep my kitchen clean, but you know what? I'm all right with that because I'm really great at research and I love that. And I don't want to switch them out. I don't want to give up my research skills for dishwashing because I just don't want to.
Like, you could probably research the most effective and efficient way to clean the kitchen, but actually
Yes.
cleaning it is the stress.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, totally agree.
I guess something else to mention as well is that sometimes people do need support to be able to identify their strengths, because when you've been told all these negative messages your whole life and you've internalized that in your internal monologue, in that negative self-talk, it can be really hard to shift in your mind, especially if you struggle with that mental flexibility. But I can tell you right now, everyone has strengths. Everyone.
Yeah. And I think it's also really important to point out that like cultural norms also have to answer to something here, because like think about growing up, right? When you were at school, maybe you did all right at maths or English, you know, like you got good grades there, but science, well, yeah, you were struggling there. So you know, your parents, the school, whatever, they put all their time and attention into helping you improve your science grade or whatever, rather than saying like, oh my goodness, you are quite good at English or you are quite good at maths. How about we get you some extra support there, because you're telling me that you really enjoy it as well. How about you just focus on what you're really good at, and we'll just keep science sort of you know,
that's the thing.
at a pass.
And, you know, if there are those executive functioning challenges, it's like, well, maybe it's like, you know, I see it like when I was in school, I think in senior, was it 6 subjects? I think we had 6 subjects. And it's like, you've got, like, it's like you're juggling 6 balls, or you've got like 6 spinning plates, and you know, you're having to go, oh, this one, that one, this one, that one, that one. And, you know, sometimes you just have to go, okay, well, I've only got this much capacity. I'm going to focus on maths and English. I don't have the spoons to be able to focus on science. So those sorts of things, like sometimes it's about understanding the underlying cause or what's going on. It's not necessarily that I can't do the science, it's that I don't have the executive functioning bandwidth to be able to do all the things, or it's hard for my brain to switch from one thing to another due to those challenges with the mental flexibility. So I think we're kind of getting a bit off topic here, and although it's a really cool conversation, so yeah, to bring it back to self-esteem, I don't know, is there anything else that you think is that you wanted to touch on at all?
No, I think I do want to point out, like, mindfulness is actually a recognized evidence-based treatment for ADHD. And I use the word treatment very, very lightly, because I don't think, you know, we need to be treated per se. But I have found mindfulness to be a very, very, very beneficial and helpful framework for life. In managing some of my own ADHD symptoms that get in the way of me living the life that I want to live.
So thank you for everyone who's joined us today for our second podcast of Divergent Dialogues about boosting self-esteem. If you haven't checked out our previous episode, give it a listen or a watch, because we talked about understanding self-esteem. Thank you to everyone for listening or watching our podcast. We really appreciate your support.